Okay, welcome back everyone. Fantasy Hockey News here. With me, Liz, for our 31 Fantasy Hockey Meditations because I had to go on Reddit and they told me to change the name from Thoughts because that was me being too egotistic. So, 31 Fantasy Hockey Meditations here, part 3, because we already have 2 out there already for people to read. So, exciting stuff. Liz, can you give a hello to the fans?
Hello, fans.
Hello, all our
Nice to
fans.
be with you again. I feel like this is like a fireside chat more than anything else.
That's exactly what this is intended to be. A lot of people take their fantasy hockey super serious out there on YouTube. Not us. We kind of just flow with the flow. And so flowing with this flow, and I'm just rubbing my hair there. Feels great. We got,
How's the mullet going?
and it's awesome. So like I said, we have those hockey cards that we were doing. We did some unboxing here. I promised that I would hold on to them and we would do the unboxing all together. But as you can see here, I unboxed all 3 boxes and opened all 60 packs. So I'm on my way to get some more new cards tomorrow. Tomorrow's payday, so ran out of money because it's Christmas time and I'm not a money bags. So new cards tomorrow coming in, I promise. That being said, I got this jersey in. Sorry, Liz?
Are there any good cards?
Yeah, there are. When we do the next unboxing, I'm going to show them. I got my cousins into the card game now, so they're collecting them. We're going to have a full binder, and we're all sharing our collections together. So there's 2,000 of these cards in the set. So
Wow.
yeah, it's going to be pretty wild trying to collect them all. I'm already looking up prices and stuff just to buy the sets and not have to collect them, but that's just me being lazy. Probably not going to do that. So we do card unboxings now. So if you ever want to join in on the fun, we have lots of leftover cards now. So if you ever want to do trades, hit us up for trades. That's always a thing now. And we'll just move it. Oh, I just wanted to show you guys this one. It's a pretty cool jersey I got for Christmas here. Not the Lafreniere, it's a Stammer one. Got it from my uncle and auntie, so got pretty spoiled. It's even got the fight on the tie here. So every time I go to the bar, I throw this guy on. I know I'm not going to get jersey, but I'm going to take a couple in the face, that's for sure. And yeah, so with that being said, Liz, I want you to argue against some of the points that I made in the 31 fantasy meditations here, because I got a couple I'm going to argue that you made here. So with that being said, can you explain to the people the Dylan Strome situation going on in Chicago now?
Man, Chicago's a mess. I feel like every day we're getting new news that someone else is out for the season. I mean, with Taves out, it's clear that Strome is kind of stepping into this 1C role.
Crazy.
I think that he is going to surprise in a good way. I think he's a tough read, but I feel like the chemistry that he's built with, I mean, really with both Kane and DeBrincat, I think that first line is going to be fine. I think the rest of the roster is kind of
going to take a big hit.
Yeah, I think that's a problem now.
So the way I see it for Strome, he was like a stay away from, like almost a cancer in terms of fantasy centers coming into the season.
For
what
sure.
happens? Doc breaks his wrist. Okay, so now he's playing with Patrick Kane here on the second line. So very valuable, but he's still not playing 1C. Then what happens? Well, now Taves is supposedly out for a long time. So now he's elevated to the 1C, which means number 1 power play, because they need him to win the draws. And so with all that, now he's probably going to be a fantasy oinker. So I redid the standings here. So Pigs have a top bracket, which is Hogs and Hogs Feast. They're the top 25 fantasy point producers in the league. And then right under them, we got Oinkers. And then in Oinkers, you have Babe Ruths. So those are those older guys like Malkin, Tavares, who used to dominate, but they don't dominate as much anymore. But they're still extremely fantasy relevant because they play on the top power play and top lines and stuff like that. So those are your Babe Ruths. And then you got your Piglets. So last year, Svechnikov would have been a Piglet. for example, because he's not a top fantasy player per se, but he's that young gun that's going to be in there right away. So Piglet, young gun, interchangeable here, but Svechnikov probably going to be a hog this year along with Aho. They have great chemistry. So with all that being said, Strome, I could absolutely see him just feasting this year in terms of fantasy point production, just because Chicago has nobody else to put in.
Nobody else.
Yeah, absolutely nobody. So with that being said, what does that mean for Patrick Kane, who's projected to be the second line right winger, and he's now got nobody to play with? So I feel like his fantasy value is going to take a significant slide here.
I mean, that or we're going to push him up to the top line and have him play with Strome and DeBrincat. But then that leaves... The problem with doing that is you're going to have a top line that is likely to play other top lines. And, you'll net out even there, but if there are holes on every other line of your roster, you're in for a really, really, really brutal year. And it doesn't help that they don't exactly have, a 1A starting caliber goalie. They're riding this tandem of... they're not great.
You're not going to take a Chicago goalie in your fantasy team unless it's a deep dynasty and you need saves and starts.
Exactly. And, it's not like their defense is stellar, but they're really going to be relying on their defense to take a step forward.
Good luck.
So, Adam Boquist is going to need to be the stud that everyone thinks he's going to be pretty much the minute he gets on the ice this year.
I think he would have had a good year if Chicago had more relevant players up front. I think they're just going to get, if you could list me off their top six off the top of your head, I'd give you $100. Because outside of the four remaining players, it's a toss-up. So Chicago, really, I'd only value Strome and Kane and maybe DeBrincat. But to be honest, I could expect regression from one, if not all. Except Strome. Strome's the only one I could see getting higher fantasy value. Would you agree?
Yeah. I think given the circumstance, I think for this year, his fantasy value will increase. Which, could also be to say, in a dynasty league, his value will increase because of the potential production for this year, but it also doesn't hurt that he's only 23.
Yep.
So you've got the fact that he's also really young, so even if he has a decent year this year, if there's a chance for regression, will it be? Will he be a 3C again? If when Doc and Taves come back?
Yeah.
There's just so many question marks that I feel like in Dynasty, I'm not sure if his value really fluctuates very much, unless you're a win now team that is desperate for that production.
To me, I think it's sky high. I'm kicking myself in the pants for for trading Dylan Strome in the past year, just because those 1Cs are just so rare, and then for him to have absolutely zero competition going into the season just means he's...
Yeah.
So with that being said, let's move off of Strome, and then I'm going to kind of keep it on the Strome topic for you with your point here. Compare him to Dubois. Who do you think is going to have a better season?
Oh gosh, that's tough. I feel like Dubois is going to have a better year because I think I just believe in his raw talent more. So, if your top line supporting cast is relatively even, I'm going to look at how much more talent you have and how much more control you have at driving play to determine, the value. I would think that there's going to be a lot less pressure on that first line in Columbus because they traded for Domi.
Yep.
They have Koivu now.
Yeah, on the third line. Yep.
Which I think is clearly they're trying to go for it again this year, but good luck. But yeah, I think just pure talent alone, Dubois has a better year. He's got the chemistry with Bjorkstrand. He's got the speed. I think if you're already low on Dylan Strome, but like you're looking at his opportunity and saying he's gonna have all the playing time in the world, great. His short-term value is great. But like you said, like at least one of those top-line Chicago players is going to have regression. So like if he's playing top-line minutes and Kane is the one to regress, say Kane is on that top line with him, then like Kane is probably the one that's going to be driving play to begin with, and if he's the one regressing, I'm not sure where that leaves Strome's value, if that makes sense. Like, I rely on Dubois more.
So what you're saying is Dubois is more of a play pusher.
Yeah, and I think that when you're on the top line, you have to be able to control the play, and I'm not sure that Strome is cut out for it. He's going to have, obviously, every opportunity, like we've said, because there is literally nobody else on that team.
So,
but I don't know if I would rely on him game after game.
So I wrote a piece on Dubois. I said it's called like why I think Pierre-Luc Dubois is not a pick kind of thing, and why he's not going to be a top fantasy player. And to me, the situation for him hasn't changed. Domi came in, yes, but what else has changed on that power play? So he had Atkinson before, and Bjorkstrand, I mean, he was hurt, but now he's back kind of thing. So a lot of people are saying, well, with Bjorkstrand back, both him and Dubois could take off together. So a lot of people are focusing on that potential, so to speak, but I see Columbus, and they're a team that relies a lot on Werenski for their offense. And even though Dubois took the next step in the playoffs, I see him not so much as a point getter. I see him, he's going to create turnovers and stuff like that, but I don't see those turnovers necessarily translating into points. I see those becoming hits and blocks and stuff like that. And then from there, Bjorkstrand and Werenski are going to kind of set each other up. So a lot of secondary assists for Dubois and dirty goals. So for me, I don't see that as being someone that dominates in fantasy. I see that as being someone as a very, very strong complementary player to any roster. But for him to be a top center this year, I think he's going to have to eclipse someone like a Ryan Nugent-Hopkins point production. And I don't think he'll be able to match that this year. So that's why I'm reserved on Dubois. And the reason why I'm high on Strome is just because I feel like he's had so many years now, just like Dubois. They both have the same amount of years, I think, in the NHL. It's just he's got more talent to play with. And I don't think Kane's going to be regressing. And I think DeBrincat is a safe bet just to on the power play to put in the goals that he passes him, for example. So I just see Chicago having a little bit more threats that help out Strome. But in the long run, if I'm wrong and Dubois has a better season, I'll bite the bullet there. So I don't want to focus too much on Strome and Dubois here. So moving on, Pool Party and his situation in Edmonton. So what we talked, or what the point was in the 31 meditations here was that Oilers centers or right wings go Yamamoto, Neal, and Kassian. Yamamoto developed a lot of chemistry with Draisaitl, and so I see that line sticking together, so to speak, at least those two. Then daily faceoff has Nugent-Hopkins with McDavid. So it's either going to be, and then Neal proved himself that he can handle McDavid's speed. So it's then Kassian, who's had a little bit of success with McDavid, but really leaves a lot to be desired. And then the new guy, Pool Party. And Pool Party was just under a point per game in Finland. So I feel he's got a lot of momentum coming into it. He was drafted for all that talent, and he does have speed. He just needs to learn how to use it, kind of thing. So with that being said, I really see him being the right wing on the first line this year. Would you agree, Liz?
I think they'll give him a chance. I think he had a really, really solid season in Liga. I think at this point, you kind of have to give him the chance. I think he's earned it, by all means. I don't know if he'll stay on the top line, but I think that he is going to definitely get a chance to succeed on the top line. I see all of the potential in the world in Pool Party, but I'm not convinced that he'll put it all together to be like a really solid top line wing in the NHL, but I hope he proves me wrong.
I think he's the most polarizing player coming into the into this season, just because he's got that guy that has that high draft pick notoriety. He played in the NHL. He was there for a season. He went and developed outside of the NHL because for locker room reasons and stuff like that. I don't really want to get into it. But now he's coming back, and so I feel like having had the NHL experience, knowing what level he needs to get to, then going to Finland, proving that he's beyond that level there, and now coming back, I feel a lot of, like I said before, I feel like he's got a lot of momentum going his way, so he's just got to earn it. And for us redrafters, I really feel like Pool Party would be someone that you would have on your sleepers list just because the opportunity's there. The only thing holding him back, he probably won't get power play 1 minutes at all this season. So you definitely need to take that into consideration. So that means he's not going to be a very good complementary player to any roster by any means, unless it's like a very deep dynasty. So just be reserved about Pool Party. Yes, he'll have an impact, but no, it won't be the greatest in terms of fantasy. He's probably be just below average would be my guess this year if he does play full season. So that's one new face in the NHL. Another new face, so to speak, is Suzuki in Montreal. What kind of season do you think he's going to have?
I think he's going to have a huge year. I think he and Kotkaniemi came back from the time off during the pandemic for the play-ins, and just, I mean, they shocked the hell out of me. Suzuki, I feel like he had a pseudo breakout last year where I think a lot more people are paying attention. But I genuinely think that this guy's the limit for that kid. There's just so much talent, and I mean, Montreal has really, they've been building a team that I think will do a lot better than people are giving them credit for. And I think that it's really, you mix in the speed and the skill of Suzuki, of Kotkaniemi. You've got the consistency of like a Gallagher. I just, that team is, it's more impressive than I think people give them credit for. So I could see most of that team actually having a pretty decent and productive season.
So to be devil's advocate here, my one reservation is for like someone to be, I mean, Suzuki had a really good playoffs cake. I'll give him that. And then Montreal went and built around him. So they got Toffoli and Anderson. So they got the big guy for the corners and Toffoli to help put the puck in the net. My only reservation is you want one centers to own not only the 5-on-5 minutes, but the power play 1. And I think Suzuki's going to have to battle with Danault for that power play 1. And it's because Danault earned that opportunity to get those points because he's put in such hard work for Montreal over these years. So I don't think Montreal is just going to kind of cast him to the side. I think this is going to be a development year for him, and the real takeoff year is next year. So in redraft leagues, what I would recommend, have Suzuki as a sleeper pick. Don't have him as someone who you think is going to carry your roster. I don't think he's there just yet. That's next year. So for anybody in leagues that carry on to the next year or longer, Suzuki as safe as bet as anything for your roster to build towards the future. Definitely looks destined to be that one center. Agree?
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at his production, his rookie season, having 40 plus points in a 70-ish game season. To be a rookie and put that up on the team that they had is pretty impressive. And
yeah, that is.
And that was with Suzuki not really getting a huge amount of ice time. I think he was between 15, maybe 16 minutes a game.
That's a good point.
So, give him more ice time and
which they definitely will.
I think that he'll produce at an even higher clip. There's always risk, obviously, of like a sophomore year regression. I feel like that's like an infamous thing. But when you look at his stats and you look at, an under a 10% shot, like shooting percentage, under 16 minutes time on ice, face-off percentage was only at like a 46, which is still decent.
Connor sucked
especially as a rookie. Yeah. So like I think that even if he makes slight improvements, he's definitely worth rostering in my opinion. I wouldn't even really consider him a sleeper at this point.
Okay, so Liz, if she was going to go off like that template that I like to use, I think she's kind of called him a high-end complimentary player, even an oinker kind of thing. Potential piggy here, definitely. Liz, hey?
Yeah, I think so.
I've never heard you say it, so I need you to say it.
Oh, God. He is a potential pig.
Love it. Love to hear it. Awesome. Okay, so next one. Moving on. We'll skip Johansson in Nashville just because I think he's totally irrelevant fantasy-wise now. What are your thoughts?
I mean, isn't most of Nashville?
Most of Nashville is, yes.
It's sad. I think that part of the problem last year wasn't really just him.
No.
I don't think anyone on that offense was particularly exciting, inclusive of Forsberg and Arvidsson. I think they were both really underwhelming.
Yeah.
So I could see a bounce back. They did also just trade for Luke Cunnin, who I think will kind of slot into their second line pretty well. But yeah, I don't know. I have a hard time really drafting anybody from Nashville.
Yeah.
In like a redraft league. And I would really, really need to love the player to hold in Dynasty. So like I know that I have like stock in Arvidsson in a cap league where I don't plan on giving him up. Obviously, I think that this is probably the lowest value he'll have. But yeah. I'm also not banking on him having a great year this year. I think that this year is going to kind of be a wash for most of Nashville. I think that the true test is going to be when we get back to that 82. But I don't know what the hell Nashville's doing, but it's not looking great.
Yeah, if your name's Yossi Forsberg and then maybe Ryan Ellis, I'm kind of sticking away from anybody else on that Nashville roster myself for these redraft leagues.
Yeah.
So, yeah, moving on, Nashville, not really that relevant. Barzal, the situation there is the exact situation in Nashville for me. Barzal, Polak, and then like all their forwards, like their wingers see interchangeable on the power play. So I kind of like to stay away from those guys because you want sure things on, especially when you're drafting. You're always drafting for players that you know for sure are going to be on the power play one unit. And I have no idea in New York Islanders. What are your thoughts there, Liz?
I think, again, it depends on what your strategy is going in. In a redraft league, I would maybe look at Anders Lee. I just feel like they're going to constantly give him all of the time and opportunity because, he is the face. But, not Nashville. The Islanders, see, they really are interchangeable.
Yep.
The Islanders are just... And it may be
they're
my
boring.
Rangers bias, but they're pretty mediocre in my opinion. It is. Their wings are just more of the same.
Yep, they're boring, and they have a good coach, and they bought into the system more than Nashville has, and that's why you see Islanders having playoff success right now, and better goaltending, I think, too, in New York. But with that being said, let's move on. And this is the big point I kind of want to talk about for the rest of the podcast, and this would be Burns and Carlson and the artificial cap defenders put on each other. So one of Liz's points here was that Carlson on San Jose looks to be like a defender that you should kind of stay away from still, and that's because last year Burns showed that he's still very relevant in the fantasy world for us fantasy hockey GMs, and Carlson looks to be struggling to gain traction in San Jose. So altogether, maybe expect the same season that we had last season out of the two. Would you agree, Liz?
Yeah, it's really hard for me, and this might just be because I play in predominantly leagues that have salary cap enabled. I don't think I could ever justify rostering Erik Karlsson again.
Yeah, it's tough.
I don't see it. I think it's tough because when, like, Burns is obviously top dog. He is. And I don't think San Jose is a deep enough team for there to be that much success beyond top dogs. So, coming in and making this stupid amount of money that he does, to me, it's just an anchor on a roster, because I don't think he's going to reach the same production that he had when he was in Ottawa.
No.
I don't think there's enough opportunity for him to have that kind of success again.
And then speaking about sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, add his cap to that and, the lack of opportunity, and it's just, dump him to a rebuilding team, give him a pick, and, let Karlsson just kind of sit around. Unless you can somehow afford it and you're trying to win now, it's not like he's not going to have offensive skill. It's not like he's not going to have points. I just don't think that he will be as productive as he was in Ottawa again.
Yeah, I agree. So opportunity here is what Liz is talking about, and that's what that artificial cap I wrote about in our segment here. So artificial cap just means, especially for defense, usually teams now go with a 1D and 4 snipers on the power play. So think of New York Rangers and how they had Zibanejad up on the point and how he rattled off 40 goals because Panarin kept finding him. So lethal power play there. So Laffrey, I got Rob working on the podcast, the Prospect podcast right now. So we're going to be doing a lot of Laffy and projecting there. So give that a check out once that airs. That's going to be pretty cool. So back to Burns and Karlsson. Burns has that 1D spot right now, which means Karlsson isn't getting those minutes. That being said, every time Burns is a little bit tired or he was out there, he's not getting double shifted anymore. They'll throw Karlsson out there. So then that's where that artificial cap comes in for both players. So Burns keeps Karlsson from starting on the power play. Karlsson keeps Burns from double shifting and starting on the power play. So what all that means is both players aren't getting enough minutes to have the seasons that they used to have before. With all that being said, Burns is the one favorite, so expect him to have more minutes. So that's kind of like the breakdown in San Jose. And then you see the same thing happening in Dallas with Klingberg and Miro. So each have an artificial cap put on each other. Dallas doesn't like the 2D system so much for the power play from what I've seen. And Sergachev and Hedman experienced the same thing. And so and then another one would be Theodore and Pietrangelo. So all these teams have two really good, solid defensemen. It just means that none of them will be the top scoring defenseman in the league. So you won't see Hughes having this issue because Hughes is always going to be starting the power play. Same goes for McCarr now. John Carlson in Washington gets the one power play minute. So that's just what you need to do to find the fine line between what will make a top 3 defender in the league versus like a top 5 to 15 defender fantasy wise. So just keep that in mind, that artificial cap. I'll keep saying it, artificial cap. So now it's in your head. And last point we'll talk about today, Cody Glass, similar situation to Suzuki in Montreal. Agree or disagree?
This one is interesting to me because I'm not sure that I 100% agree, but I could see a breakout like that happening. I think it really comes down to where he is in the lineup and you know who his line mates are and what opportunity he gets. With Vegas, it's always kind of hard for me to project. But
so right now, Daily Faceoff has it as Marchessault, Carlson, and Smith as the first line, and then Glass centering Pacioretty and Stone on the second line. So,
gosh, I sure would love it if that happened.
Yeah, if that happens, I mean, he's got maybe the best or a top 5 right winger in Stone, and then a top 5 left winger in Pacioretty. And so, I mean, all he's got to do is exist, and he'll get points 5 on 5. Just be reserved on him. Be more reserved on Glass than Suzuki for getting power play 1 minutes, which would hold me back. Which is why I would put Suzuki above Glass, but Glass is having that same opportunity as Suzuki, which means Glass has that potential for a breakout season, just like Suzuki does. Just maybe a little bit less points to expect.
Yeah. I hope that he stays healthy. Also,
what I heard is he put on a serious weight in terms of muscle, so he wants to feast this year. Is my understanding.
So he isn't made of glass anymore. That's good.
No.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if Daily Faceoff is right and he ends up centering that second line, I would buy, and I would say that he could be a sleeper in redraft. But I kind of feel like they're gonna let him develop a little bit more.
So Liz is reserved.
Vegas is such a weird. They're in such a weird spot because they're really trying to make a push, but they don't they're beyond their top line. Or I guess line and a half really. Like they don't have a lot of depth. Like outside of Alex Tuck, I don't really think much of their bottom 6.
Chandler Stevenson, I think, is their 3 center. Yeah, but it's hard to
mediocre to me though.
It's hard to rattle off the rest of the 6, but for where Glass is right now, I don't think he's got the competition. So that's why I think a lot of people are high. Like I see it on Reddit and YouTube. A lot of people are big. Fantasy Puck is who I like to watch on YouTube. He's got short videos and stuff like that, so I recommend his stuff. And he's got Glass, so that's where I got this piece from. Glass and Suzuki, so I wanted to write about those guys and kind of do a bigger piece than what he said. So that's kind of everything for this episode. If you want to know more about the 31 fantasy meditations, just go on our website, fantasyhockeynews.com. We have been kind of getting a little bit busier in terms of traffic, so that's pretty exciting to see. We are trying our best to get content out as much as possible here, so we're doing the unbox and always challenging people on PS4 to try to beat me, even though you can't unless you're Jack and you cheated. And we got more meditations coming out here, and we got a World Juniors one coming up pretty soon, which I'm pretty excited for. We got a lot of points already down, and we're going to release that. Gold medal day, maybe just the day after, so you get a little recap here of everything that happened on the gold medals in terms of Fanalytica and what our thoughts are in terms of prospect value. Liz, do you have any final parting thoughts for anybody? Would you like to say goodbye, give a final shout out, maybe talk some trash to anybody in our leagues?
Oh God, gosh, no trash talk for me. I feel like I've already gotten myself in trouble enough. Definitely been very active on the trade talks, and my phone is always glued to my hand these days. So hopefully, in the coming meditations, I'll be able to take some of my trades and formulate some thoughts and why players are valued the way that they are and stuff like that.
Cool. Yeah, so Liz has no parting shots, but I'll give a couple parting shots here. One would be to my commissioner in my original league. I'll just say, boo, Ryan. Boo, boo. And second would be commissioner in one of my other leagues called Value Village. His name is John. Or John from Trade Talk here. I'll give a boo to John. Boo, John. And yeah, so that's everything for this episode. Thank you for coming in, and hope to see you next time.